military history of the military art, which is you follow the development of technology, leadership, all these trends throughout all history from up Napoleon. I'm forgetting the first guy I was going to mention, but way back in time, all the way through Napoleon, World War I, World War II, all this. And you see these trends in leadership, technology, social things that are going on, and so you learn how to assess battles and those kind of things in that course. Highlights of my career as an infantry officer: I was a company commander in the Gulf War. I had 126 infantrymen, so I knew a little bit about men with rifles and how difficult it is to control them and move them at night, daytime, rough terrain. Army sent me to graduate school. I taught at West Point, and then these are just highlights. Deputy commander of the Army's Ranger School at Fort Benning, Georgia. And then Duke University was my last assignment, and that's what brought me to the battlefield. I was teaching the ROTC at Duke University, and I was telling Chris, once the Army posted me at North Carolina, I wasn't going to take another assignment. Because I'm from North Carolina. I tried my whole career to get stationed at Fort Bragg, couldn't do it. My wife and I, Karen, is here. She's from Charlotte, I'm from Maiden. We burned the ships once we got to North Carolina. We're not taking another promotion, not taking another assignment. I didn't let my records go to the promotion board because I didn't want to be tempted with,
yeah, whatever they hold in front of you.
Yeah, we're done. So I would have my cadets do a battle analysis just for their own training, and there was so much Revolutionary War history in the area. I had them pick a Revolutionary battlefield in the South. The Revolution, as Dr. Freeze talked about yesterday, was largely a civil war in the South. It was neighbor against neighbor, and I wanted them to understand that. I wanted them to pick certain battles. So one would do a presentation on Ramsar's Mills, another would do Kings Mountain, and then we'd come down here. I think with seniors every year, we'd come down here, walk the battlefield, and talk about what took place here. And we also include the Cowpens, which is another battle down the road, happened about 6 months after Kings Mountain. So that's kind of just a background. See what else I wrote here. Oh, wrong notes. We're in the process of building a house too, so got all kind of notes here. Yeah. Oh, it's just my whole world here. So I wanted to give you a flavor for the, why were these two armies here? Right? Sometimes you walk these battlefields and, like I say, the markers kind of explain what took place, but the real thing to understand is what brought these here. Why were they here? It wasn't like they said, hey, you guys, tomorrow we're going to throw down, all right? Show up at Kings Mountain, you bring your guys, I'll bring my guys, and we're going to settle this thing. It just doesn't happen that way. There's a reason armies end up on certain terrain, but I'm in my notes now, so. Okay. And one of the things I wanted to say about the West Point training is everyone studies engineering at West Point, at least they did back when I went through. Because engineering is problem solving, and military operations are problem solving. They're problems. You've got something you're trying to accomplish, there's a guy in your way trying to keep you from accomplishing it. How are you going to do it, right? So I want to talk a little bit about the strategic and operational settings that brought these two armies here. So 1780, there was war everywhere in the world, and especially in North America. The 7 Years' War just ended in 1763. The British, the Spanish, the French are fighting each other all over the globe. And they're carving up North America. The United States doesn't exist. We have colonies. And this whole territory west of the Appalachians is being explored. And it's being contested by the French, the Spanish, and the British. They all want a piece of the action, and the Indians. And the Indians are playing the colonial powers against each other. They're pitting the French against, they're playing mom against dad. And they're fighting each other. And the British are aligned with some of the Indians, and the French are aligned with some of the Indians. And the settlers are aligned with some Indians, and they fight others. So it's just war everywhere. And the British have their fleets all over the world fighting the Spanish, and they're just out of troops. The British people are out of men. And in 1780, Spain, Dutch, France, and Mysore, which is in India, all declare war on Britain. So they're fighting everywhere. The moms don't have any more sons to give. So what do? They got a stalemate here in the colonies up north where Washington's fighting with the regulars. So the strategy is to make a new invasion in the south part of the colonies and come up through the south, raise a loyalist army. They're out of troops. Let's go to the Americas and get some troops and then reinforce the effort to put down this rebellion. So that's kind of the big picture. So Cornwallis plans to land in Savannah, move on Charleston, which he does, takes Charleston, which is a huge loss to the Patriot effort, massive loss, like 5,000 prisoners, I think, and lots of cannons. And then he moves on Camden, and operationally, he's moving like a main body up the front. He's got on his left flank Patrick Ferguson. He's the left guard, the screen action. As Cornwallis moves through Camden and heads towards Charlotte, Ferguson's got the rough terrain, he's got the rough people. He's on the left. Tarleton, who's shown in the movie,
he's the bad
Patriot,
guy.
the bad guy that's implicated in war crimes at Waxhaws, is on the right. He's the cavalry guy screening the right. So that's operationally what's going on when we get close to October 7th. The Patriots up in the hills are going about their normal business, but these militias are engaged in Indian fighting, and occasionally they've come down and they fought the British, like Ramser's Mill. Some of these guys have fought at Ramser's Mill, and some of these other skirmishes. They're primarily beginning to explore further west. That's what they're focused on. Isaac Sevier is one of the colonels here from what's now Tennessee, Sevierville in Tennessee, first governor of Tennessee. He's one of the colonels that leads a militia here. He's a land surveyor, so he's big into, it's all about land, and I appreciate Dr. Freeze yesterday talking about that friction with the land and land ownership, right? But people don't just get out and fight each other for patriotic fervor, right? There's something else usually going on. And in this case, it was their livelihood. So Ferguson had come up, he put his headquarters in Gilberttown, which is roughly Rutherfordton, modern day Rutherfordton. He made a declaration to these militias. He knew they were out there because he had fought some of them already. He said, lay down your weapons or I will lay waste to your land. Y'all know the quote? With fire and sword. So he's telling these settlers, you know, he's laying it down, and they respond, right? Now there's two ways they could have responded. They could say, hey, this guy's up here with a loyalist army, we need to go on the defensive, right? A lot of us would do that. What did they do? I'm way ahead in my notes here. So. They do a preemptive attack. They don't wait for the battle to come to them. They take the fight to him, and they say, we're going to take you out. So let me get on track here with some notes I put together last night, because the main takeaway today is that you leave with a greater appreciation of the daring, the tenacity, the will, and the resolve of these over mountain men. And the bottom line up front, which I was trained to do in the Army, tell you what I'm going to tell you first, and then we'll talk about it in more detail. This is the American way of war. Peaceful people, ardently free, liberty-loving people do not want war. They want peace. They want prosperity. They want this land up in the Cumberland area and the Ohio region that they're all exploring. They've got the Long Hunters. There's Long Hunter State Park in Tennessee. The Long Hunters are going deep and exploring this country. They want to continue to expand, move west, have a peaceful life, and they're fiercely independent, self-reliant. They don't seek conflict. This is the American way of war, right? And our rights come from who? Creator, God. They don't come from a king, you know. That's what American exceptionalism is. We're the only country in the world that, in our founding documents, we declare that No one tells us what our rights are. The Creator gave us these rights, and we tell the government how far they can come to impinge on those rights, right?
Yes.
Government of the people, not government of some king. So these guys are fiercely elected. The Scotch-Irish, largely, in the hills of Sycamore Shoals, which is near Waxhaw, not Waxhaw, not Waccamaw. What's the name of that town up there?
In the west?
It's west of Rutherford, further. Sycamore Shoals at the Watauga.
Yeah.
Small town of Watauga. So it's Scotch-Irish are fiercely independent people. I was telling someone yesterday, my mom is a Scotch-Irish descendant. And the expression about the Scotch-Irish is they have to pray, Lord, grant that I may always be right, because thou knowest I'm hard to turn. That is my mother, exactly. Once they put their foot down, you know, I stated my piece, I'm not moving. What's the expression from that movie? I'm not changing. These are the people that in the Over Mountain, that's the attitude they had. So that's who Ferguson came and said, I'm going to lay waste to your land with fire and sword. And they responded with a preemptive attack. All right, but when we are forced to fight, we pursue total annihilation. This is the American way of war. We will take you out, destroy you, because we want to get back to our peace-loving way of life. We don't want to go conquer other people and have to deal with all that. Just leave us alone. But when you mess with us, it's going to be total. You know what FDR said in World War II? Unconditional surrender. The war could have ended in 2 years if we had made peace with the Germans or we made a peace treaty with the Japanese. Unconditional surrender. That's why it lasted for 4 years, because we were taking it to the end. And this is a microcosm of that attitude, that American way of war. And that's kind of the main thing I was hoping you would leave with after this discussion. So, has anybody heard all that before? Is this all just secondary? Come on, we all know this stuff. So why on 7 October 1780 were these two opponents on this ground? What brought them here? You know, the strategic situation. I've talked about the global war and the stalemate in the north. The British are out of troops. I've already hit all that. The planned invasion of the South. He was going to secure South Carolina, take North Carolina, and then join up his forces in the north to help defeat Washington, right? We know that didn't happen. Okay. Operational situation. Okay, I talked through that already. Land in Savannah, take Charleston, then Camden, then to move toward Charlotte. We've already hit that. The operational setup. All right. The militia, Colonel Shelby from Tennessee, is the primary one that alerts all the other militias in the area in the mountain regions that they're going to meet and take out this threat, Ferguson. And he was from Tennessee, eastern Tennessee. Colonel Sevier had a militia, what's now Tennessee.
Shelby is named after him, right? The town of Shelby.
Shelby
I
County.
imagine it might be.
Yeah.
Colonel Campbell is from Virginia. One of the quotes he's credited with here is, "Shout like hell and fight like devils," he told his men. Colonel McDowell was from North Carolina. Colonel Cleveland was from North Carolina. So Tennessee, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. These militias moved out of the hills. Now, in their operational world, that was a economy of force operation. They had to leave a small force behind. Why? They were still fighting Indians. Yeah, there's still battles going on in the mountains with the Indians, and so they had to take risk. This is the boldness of what they did. They organized the Sycamore Shoals, and they all descended out of the hills from various routes. Some didn't join, I think, until they got to Cowpens. And Ferguson finds out at his headquarters at Gilberttown, near Rutherford, that they're coming because everybody had spies, everybody had scouts, and two patriots defected and actually came and told them the route that the Over Mountain men were taking. I've been up on the Appalachian Trail where the Over Mountain Trail crosses it. That's some rugged terrain. Has anybody else been up there? It's rugged, it's brutal, it's tough stuff. And these guys all, they're mountain men, some are horseback, many are walking. They're pushing cattle with them, right? You know why?
Food.
They got to eat. So it's October, it's cold. They got all this. Imagine this entourage coming out of the hills. It's like a ghost army. And they move through Gilberttown. There's a cat and mouse game. They're chasing Ferguson. It's a preemptive strike. They chose to seize the initiative, right? They weren't just going to wait and let it come to them. They chase him all the way down to cow pens, just down the road. And then the last night, they just take the mounted men, because they're trying to rush to cut Ferguson off. Ferguson's trying to get back to Charlotte. The main force of Cornwallis's army is in Charlotte. If he can make it to the main lines, he's safe. Well, God shows up. Cornwallis and Tarleton are both sick with yellow fever. And many of Tarleton's men died from this disease. They call it something else, but historians think it was yellow fever, some kind of mosquito-borne thing. Cornwallis is sick for 3 weeks. He's ineffective. Ferguson, they cut Ferguson off. You can say he chose to fight here. He did, but they rushed with the horsemen and cut him off from Charlotte. They got around him, and they forced him, they fixed him, they isolated him at Kings Mountain. And then, now the table's set, right? So that's the strategic operational background that got us here. And like I say, when we walk the battlefield, the markers will kind of give all the details that I can't remember because it's been 20 years about how they attacked. And I think there's talk about how each militia, they work together, but it seems, if I remember from my reading, that Shelby and Sevier were kind of natural leaders. And I think it was Shelby who said, I don't know when he said it, but when they pressed the attack, they chose that Cowpens were going to take 900 best marksmen, 900 strongest horses, and we're going to race and cut him off. They moved all night, and I think it was a rainy night. They cut him off, and he said, I will follow him to the gates of hell if I have to. I mean, they were just determined. They were going to take this guy out, get rid of this menace completely so they could return back to their peaceful way of life, or their normal warfare way of life, back to fighting Indians. So this also has like a modern theme. They're fighting a two-front war, right? You see that friction throughout our history. It's never as simple as just fighting one army. Okay, let's see what else we have here. It was 11 days when they left Sycamore Shoals that they pursued Ferguson, and that's why we ended up here at Kings Mountain. The accelerated pursuit cut him off. He's forced to fight. He encamps at Kings Mountain. Okay.
Was Ferguson already here in the States looking for, or did he come over with a larger contingent?
That's a great question. I don't know. Because he had the job of raising a loyalist army. He was up here in Gilberttown recruiting.
Yeah.
Somehow I think I read that he was something of a frontiersman himself, and was a known commodity with some of these guys, Daniel Boone and others. And when the war came, he got a commission as a British officer, but I'm not entirely certain on that. He had a familiarity with the Carolina backcountry. I mean, I guess we know that enough.
Right.
Yeah.
That made a difference.
So there was no strategic value here, though. It just happened to be that they just intersected.
They were trying to pursue, and they cut him off from the major force, and they isolated him. It wasn't like, we're going to meet at Kings Mountain. And
Sevier and Shelby, they were colonels, militia colonels, and they were the only true commanders on the scene. They were running the show as far as the Patriots were concerned. Is that correct?
that's my memory. And now Campbell, Sevier, and Shelby, and there was McDowell and one more. They're all colonels.
Yeah.
And they had the authority of a magistrate, so they could hold court. And after the battle, they actually moved some of the prisoners, 698 I think, towards Gilberttown as they went back into the hills, and they stopped and held court and hanged 9 of them from an oak tree. And people were pointing out in the crowd, he's the one that burned my cousin out of their house. You know?
Right, yeah.
He's the one that shot all my horses, because this stuff was going on back then.
Sure.
And they hung them, and someone made the quote, "Never has an oak tree held such great fruit." But they got sick of it.
Yeah.
They got sick of it. They stopped hanging them. They had like 15 more that they were going to hang, but I think I had the quote in here. I think Shelby said, "This is enough," or "Enough is enough." And that's something else I wanted to share with you, that there's humanity in warfare. I experienced it in the Gulf War. We just overran the Iraqi army. We just took it apart, decimated it. The American artillery was devastating on the enemy. And I'm an infantry company commander moving in down the Euphrates River Valley, of all places. Euphrates River Valley, isn't that something?
Well,
Leading the assault of 24th Infantry Division down the Euphrates River Valley, taking these guys out. They have no idea we're there. Our movement was covered by a massive sandstorm. Did you hear about that on CNN? You couldn't see the vehicle in front of you. We moved 400 kilometers over a period of 2.5 days. We came around the back. But anyhow, the point is, after we decimated these guys, the humanity, you can't get away from it. Soldiers start giving away their meals. They start giving away their blankets, their equipment to help these their enemy. So humanity shows up on the battlefield. It's just something that you don't read about in history, but you see it, and I've experienced it. All right, so we talked about the actual fight. And once they moved around, they just started attacking uphill. And Nathan has already mentioned this earlier. I don't know if everyone heard it or not, but British would form up and they would do a bayonet charge downhill. You're going to see the hill; it's pretty significant. They did a bayonet charge downhill, and the Patriots just retreat back behind rocks and trees. And now the Loyalists got to climb back up the hill, right, to their friendly lines. They turned their back on these sharpshooters, and they just got decimated. They shot them. And they did this several times. It ebbed and flowed. Bayonet attack, musketry. Patriots climbed back up the hill. It took 2 or 3 times, and it was happening all around the mountain. Different militias are going up and down, up and down, up. Till finally Ferguson's losing so many men, his perimeter gets smaller and smaller until he's at the top of the hill, and he takes like 7 balls. They say he gets hit on he makes a last charge with his horse, and he gets shot off his horse. One of his mistresses is killed. He had 2 women here with him, and they raised the white flag, and the men disregarded it and kept shooting. And the colonels had a hard time getting control of their soldiers, and that's something that you have to deal with as an infantry leader. When it's done, it's done. You got to shut it off. You got to have discipline in your units. They had a hard time. These guys wanted to finish it off. I mean, this was blood. What do you call it? I don't know. Selling old scores. Yeah. Like I was saying earlier, they wanted to get it done
the
and get it over with.
No quarter given.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, give them Tarleton's quarter, right? The same kind of
right.
quarter he gave guys at Waxhaw. So the casualties, the Patriots lost 28 killed, and the Loyalists had 157 killed. The Patriots had 62 wounded. The Loyalists had 163 wounded. And prisoners of war, 698 prisoners of war Loyalists were taken prisoner. And they moved them back towards Gilbert as they headed back into the hills. Now, I've already talked about the hanging of 9. Okay. So they returned back to their homes, fade back into the hills like a ghost army. They've accomplished their mission. So here's the so what. So now Cornwallis had just lost the entire left flank of his army. And he's got all these mountains to his left, and he's completely uncovered. He's still got Tarleton over here on his right flank. So he's forced to retreat. Remember, he was going to Charlotte and he was going to go up to Virginia. He retreats back to Wintersboro, South Carolina, which is almost back to Camden.
It's right
Not too
outside
far
of
away.
Columbia. It's, yeah.
Yeah. Then he had to, you've got a line of communications. That's your logistics trains, your horses, your supplies, all coming from the port, right? Because they came in from Savannah and they took Charleston. So all his supply lines are exposed. The Loyalist recruiting effort collapses. Many of the Loyalists switch sides, which was common. They become patriots, I'm going to be on the winning side. The guerrilla attacks against the British small redoubts and forces increased dramatically because the patriots are now encouraged. And George Washington has a quote about how it changed the tide of the whole revolutionary effort. The stalemate in the North, it gave them hope. Cornwallis has to go on the defensive. He doesn't have the capability to continue his offensive operation. So he's stuck there. He ends up, regrouping, and you have the Battle of Cowpens about in January of the next year, which is also a big defeat for Cornwallis. Then he limps his way up into Virginia, and we know he eventually surrenders to Washington at Yorktown. Okay. The Over Mountain men, they wrest, what we say in the military, they wrest the initiative from the enemy. Cornwallis had the initiative, but they came and they took it away from him, and now he's on the defensive. All right. That's the big overview.
One question,
Yes.
did they ever find out who the traitors were?
I'm sure they did, because we know that the two deserted. I don't know their names, but
Okay.
yeah, I don't know what became of them. I feel sorry. I bet it wasn't nice.
Gotta think.
Yeah, you can guess.
Yep.
They might have been on that oak tree.
Or they could have changed their mind.
Given that the Over Mountain men were the bulk of the force, they received recruits from the local areas too on the eve of the battle. Is that correct? Otherwise, Conrad, his supposed involvement would not have been a factor, and others in the area.
Right. I'm glad you said that, because they knew the terrain. Many of these frontiersmen had been long hunters. They'd hunted this area. They knew the ground. That's how they knew how to get around him in a hurry. And they would have used the intelligence of the locals.
Right.
So this network was taking place. People were reporting on Ferguson's movements back to him as they moved. Just normal settlers would say, hey, I just saw his wagon train come through here, that kind of thing. So yeah, locals had a lot to do with it.
And the locals had preliminary word of the Over Mountain men's movement that something was going to happen, and that's why you had people showing up on the eve of the battle, perhaps like Conrad with a wagon load of supplies ready to feed men.
Well, and family members showed up at the trial and saw their family members hang in some cases, and took their bodies down. The ones who weren't claimed, they left them hanging as a warning. This is what happens when you mess with the Patriots. Don't become a loyalist was the message, right?
Yeah. What happened to the POWs as they moved?
I just know they took them to Gilberttown. I don't know what happened after that.
Okay.